Jason is already wanted when he asks for this favor. The warehouse he detonated made him an arsonist on every police channel in the country, and he's calling it in anyway, from hiding, like a man with nothing left to lose because he already lost it. Su-hyeon takes one look at him and laughs. Mr. Terrorist. She means it as a joke. It isn't really one. He doesn't laugh back. He needs someone on Hajin around the clock, somebody who can fight off more than one person at a time without blinking. That part's easy for Su-hyeon. The second favor isn't. He wants her to personally teach Sejun how to fight. Not the gym version, not sparring with rules. He wants Sejun taught the way you teach someone who's going to need to kill a man and live with it afterward. Su-hyeon doesn't ask why. She already knows why. She just lights another cigarette and goes to find him. She finds Sejun at a boxing gym, throwing soft punches at a heavy bag, like the bag is the only thing in the world that won't hit back. She buys her way into the gym in about 30 seconds. Cash, a smile, a threat dressed up as a compliment, and tells the owner she needs the place and a sparring partner, and doesn't owe him an explanation for either. Sejun doesn't know who she is until she says Jason's name. Then everything in his face changes. Is he okay? Is he hurt? Nothing else in the room matters until that's answered. She tells him Jason's fine. Then she tells him the part that actually matters. She's not gentle like Jason. She doesn't care if Sejun's underage or what kind of person that makes her for training him anyway. She wants to know if he's still willing to do whatever it takes to make Jun-woo Han pay for what he did to Hajin. He doesn't hesitate. I'll do it. That's all she needed to hear. He gives her the name himself, like he's been carrying it around waiting for someone to ask. Jun-woo Han. The man's leg is already torn open from Jason's knife. Still healing, still vulnerable. Sejun wants to go finish it tonight. Su-hyeon tells him no. Jason has a plan, and tonight isn't part of it. What Sejun gets instead is training, starting now. She brings in a sparring partner built like a wall, Jung-ho. Brown-orange hair, hoodie, a calm that should worry you more than yelling would. He doesn't ease Sejun in. He calls it a constitution test, and starts swinging like Sejun's a heavy bag with opinions. Sejun goes down, gets up, goes down again, 12 times, by the gym's count. Every hit lands like it's trying to teach his body something his brain won't survive remembering. Su-hyeon crouches next to him on the mat and asks if he wants to quit. Just say it. She's not wasting her time on a maybe. He grins through blood. I found someone who's going to teach me like this, he says, no matter what happens to me. Across the city, in a hospital room, Jun-woo Han is teaching a lesson of his own. His doctor tries to explain the limits of what medicine can do. The artery he was lucky to keep. The muscle damage that takes time to heal. Han doesn't want to hear what's possible. He wants to hear what the doctor is going to make happen. 3 months. If his leg isn't fully working by then, he promises to take the man's money, his job, everyone he loves. Then he opens a laptop, shows him a recording. Things the doctor's done, alone, to children who never had a say in it. Recorded, saved, insurance. The doctor doesn't argue anymore. Han never raises his voice once. That's the part that should scare you, more than if he had. Later, the man Han actually trusts, Director Kim, checks in. They've already sent people to watch Sejun and to watch Hajin. Kim assumes nobody's crazy enough to run a full-time detail on a teenage girl. Han corrects him. Someone is exactly that crazy. He's already on her, 24 hours a day. That someone is Joseph. Bald, quiet, built like a man who's never had to raise his voice to win an argument. He's been parked outside Hajin's cram school for days, and the 2 men sent to tail her have gotten sloppy enough that even she's clocked them turning around every time she does. She calls them out directly. They deny it. Joseph doesn't bother arguing the point. He starts swinging, fast and final, and within seconds both men are on the ground, one of them coughing up whatever's left of his dignity. Hajin asks if they should call the cops. Joseph tells her there's no evidence, so there's no point. Crushing guys like this is the only remedy that sticks. She asks his name. He's almost shy giving it up. Joseph, 22, 3 years older than her, and somehow that's the detail that embarrasses him most. Back at the gym, the bruises start adding up in a different direction. Su-hyeon watches Sejun get knocked out again and again, by a partner brought in just for variety. And when Dohyun, Sejun's training partner, mostly a boxer himself, voices concern for him, she shuts it down hard. Worrying about someone else's pain isn't kindness. Sometimes, it's just a way of getting in the way. Then she reminds him, almost casually, that he still owes a debt for damage he did to people once. Damage that doesn't disappear just because he feels bad about it now. Dohyun doesn't ask what she means. He already knows. That's when the late arrival shows up. Bloodied, scarred, soaked in someone else's blood. reporting he just finished taking care of some rats. This one is different from Jung-ho. This one is Rhino, Jisoo, technically, though nobody calls him that. One of Su-hyeon's people. And he's furious, because what he was promised was tutoring some kids, and what he's actually walked into involves real gangsters with real money behind them. Su-hyeon doesn't apologize for the scope creep. She tells him the job now includes killing every last one of them. He doesn't get a say in it for long. Someone shouts a warning across the gym, "Knife, behind you," and a man Reiner didn't clock fast enough puts a blade in his back before anyone can stop it. Rhino barely reacts. He calls it getting shanked like it's a parking ticket, grabs the attacker's arm hard enough to make him scream, and starts asking questions. Which crew? Whose orders? The man doesn't have real answers. He's hired muscle. Nobody's real soldier, and the lack of a real answer is exactly what makes Rhino snap. He breaks the man's wrist for wasting his time, calls it a lack of connection tax, while Su-hyeon casually asks someone to wrap his arm, like this happens every week. Sejun watches all of it and absorbs more than the violence. He's starting to understand exactly what kind of people Jason actually surrounds himself with. He asks Su-hyeon carefully why Jason's risking everything for Hajin specifically. All she gives him is one line. Hajin reminds him of someone. No name, no follow-up. So Sejun gives her something instead. His real reason, the one underneath the one everyone assumes. It's not just about what happened to Hajin anymore. It's about how weak he felt standing there, unable to stop it. If he'd held back one more second that night, none of it happens to her. He can't sleep knowing that. He needs to tear Jun-woo Han apart with his own hands. Not because it's noble, but because it's the only way he'll ever feel like he actually protected anyone. Su-hyeon tells him flatly that he sounds pretty stupid. "Oh good," he says, like that's exactly the validation he needed. Then she gives him the only rule that actually applies here. Do what you want. Own every consequence of it. No room for self-pity afterward. Somewhere else in the city, a 20-year-old in a holding room is getting the opposite kind of pressure. Lim Jung-hyun, red-haired, kickboxer trained, already locked up after a failed knife attack on a gym connected to Jason, sits across from a detective who wants the name above him. Lim laughs it off, plays dumb, calls it a waste of time. The detective doesn't raise his voice either. He lays it out calmly. Taking down one boss changes nothing. Another one rises immediately, and Lim's whole life has run on excuses for choices that were always his own. There's an edge under the calm. Lim doesn't break. Not yet. The detective leaves the door open anyway, and walks out first. Back at the boxing gym, Rhino's patience with Dohyun finally runs out completely. Someone mentions almost in passing that Dohyun used to rip off weaker kids at his old school. Rhino goes still for half a second. Then he stops holding back. The punch that lands is the first one in this entire stretch of training Dohyun didn't see coming, and it isn't an accident. Rhino tells him flat out, people who use strength to hurt people weaker than themselves deserve exactly this. He's not coaching anymore. He's collecting. Dohyun apologizes between hits. Rhino tells him not to apologize to him. Apologize to every kid he ever hurt, his entire life, with every punch that follows. Dohyun goes down hard, dazed, and the only thing he can manage afterward is asking quietly if Rhino's only obligated to follow the boxing rules right now. Rhino's answer doesn't leave him much room. He's not a coach in this moment. Going easy was never actually his job. Dohyun's punishment continues in the ring days later, and Rhino isn't done teaching lessons the hard way. Won't hit you with my right hand, he tells Dohyun mid-round. Then uses it anyway without ever throwing the actual punch. Just enough pressure to prove Dohyun's still flinching at the wrong moments. Don't think with your head, Rhino tells him. Use your instincts. Dohyun gets caught the same way twice before it sinks in. Off to the side, while Dohyun's still absorbing the lesson, Sejun says something to Su-hyeon that isn't really a question. There's someone he needs to kill with his own hands, or cripple trying. She doesn't blink. She asks, is it true the person deserves it? No excuses, no circumstances that change the answer. Yes, Sejun says, for me, because he has to be torn apart and killed. She doesn't try to talk him out of it. She's carried that exact kind of anger herself before. She doesn't offer comfort, and she doesn't offer doubt either. Just a flat kind of understanding that some scores don't get settled with patience. Sejun corners Su-hyeon with the question he's been sitting on. Jun-woo Han's leg is still healing. Does that actually give him a real shot at winning? She won't promise him anything. She's not a fortune teller, she tells him, and she's not going to lie and say he's safe. Han isn't safe either, not from what's coming for him. All Sejun can do is keep training and stop asking questions that are really just fear wearing a different outfit. He's still turning that over when Su-hyeon catches him from behind in a loose hold, studying his face a little too closely. Seeing it in person, she murmurs, "He looks more alike than I thought." She doesn't say who she means. That's when Hajin walks in. She sees Su-hyeon's arm around Sejun's neck before she sees anything else. Sejun startles, stammering out questions nobody answers. Hajin doesn't move. She looks straight at Su-hyeon and asks the only thing she actually came in wanting to know. "What are you doing to Sejun?"